Welcome to our next founder interview. I think you'll like this one. Nicolas Jacobeus has built a $30,000 a month content marketing business by solving a problem many SaaS business founders face: how to scale their marketing without hiring an expensive team. In this interview, Nicolas shares how he got his first clients with absolutely zero marketing budget, the system he uses to scale his business while keeping it lean, and don't miss his thoughts on the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make while launching their business. If you find any value from it, please hit like and subscribe. Let's meet Nicolas.
Before we dive into your business, can you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Nicolas. I'm from Belgium originally, right? I'm now living in Dubai. In terms of background, I studied computer engineering. I did some other postgrad, degrees like in entrepreneurship and finance and so on. But it's mostly I'm a geek at heart. So I'm a computer engineer. Actually, I fell in love with programming when I was a little kid, to be honest, like 6 or 7 years old. I've always been quite fascinated with software. And back then it was gaming a lot. I loved, programming games and stuff as a teenager. But as I got older, I, of course, got into the business side of things, I suppose.
So what is SaaSprin and what services do you offer?
Right. So SaaSprin is, I like to present it as a SaaS-focused content marketing service. I mentioned content marketing. So we do all sorts of content. We actually started exclusively doing blogging as a service. So it's done for you blogging. So when we started in 2020, the only package was essentially we're going to take care of your blog, right? So there's going to be some kind of, onboarding process where you tell us about what you do, what your product does, since we're focusing on SaaS, and that's where my experience is. And then we're going to do the whole content strategy and start publishing blogs on your behalf. And depending on the package, it would be twice a month or every week or twice a week and stuff like that, depending on the package they chose. And I decided to do that actually for two reasons. It was a personal experiment. As I said, I wanted to do something that would allow me to learn about how to productize services like that, because I had a lot of experience selling services, but not that way. And, packaging, and as I mentioned, but also it's something that I learned was very useful for the clients I was working on. So I was already working with clients on the product development side with my other business. There, most of those clients would tell me, so, we would build MVPs and so on for them. And at some point, you're always asked, okay, but how can you help us market this, right? And content marketing felt like it was a great way, and still is today, to promote and grow a SaaS, basically.
And how did you get your first clients, and what strategies did you use to build trust with them initially?
It's very important, I suppose, because it's I think it's probably the hardest part, right? The first stages are super difficult because you have nothing. You have to, as you said, it's trust based, right? People at some point have to take the leap and trust you, because you can't really show anything yet, so that they have to believe in you. In my case, I guess I got a kickstart. I obviously already had a network, and that's where the power of network comes. I basically reached out to all those people, so clients, former clients, even former leads, people who never worked with me actually, but who were in my CRM. I just said, okay, we've been in touch in the past. So basically one-to-one, very personalized outreach, saying, you remember me? I'm Nicolas. We were in touch 6 years ago or whatever. And I'm launching a new service, and I know you still have a SaaS. We're basically looking for early adopters. And so basically asking for, in a way, you're asking for a favor, because as I said, they have to trust you, but also there's always something you give in exchange, right? And so in that case, the idea basically was to offer very low prices. So we just said, okay, for us at this stage, it's more important for me to build a portfolio, as opposed to, making as much money as possible. So we just cut our prices. And if I remember, the first few clients were just, at cost, we were just trying to start, learn, and build a process with them. Spend a lot of time doing stuff that's essentially non-scalable. But yeah, that was the idea, and it paid off. I guess we got clients very fast, actually, honestly, because thanks to that approach, and of course the people are already new.
Do you think those people that you already knew, that obviously I'm sure helped initialize that trust? But was there any kind of still questionable amount of, hey, can you actually get this work done?
Yeah, I think so, because if I remember back then, since of course they knew me as an expert in product development, and I guess I was kind of trustworthy, I suppose, but I didn't really know whether I would be doing that. I forgot to mention that, but I also chose blogging because I felt like it's something that I was hoping I wouldn't be stuck in trying to do everything myself, because that's the usual thing I think a lot of business owners struggle with when they try to scale. So in that case, I decided to surround myself with experts. Actually started the company with a person I had worked in the past with for my agency in content marketing, and she helped me build the first processes and hire writers and editors and content strategists and so on. So we've actually built this small pool of freelancers, of contractors, right, that we could rely on very quickly. That contributed to the trust I could provide back then, because I said, I have no proof. I can't, especially since we are in blogging, it's SEO. it's very difficult to prove results very fast. So that there's this time element as well that's important. I mean, you can definitely show a first blog very quickly, but that's not the main value you provide because, I mean, the content has to be good, but it's not enough, right? It has to convert and so on. So this is something very difficult to prove. So yeah, I think the only thing I could say was, I mean, I think you trust me. You've worked with me in the past.
That is a fantastic idea and a great strategy. You said you hired them for yourself before you hired them to work for someone else, correct?
Yeah. So the thing that's true. There was this whole vetting process where we would try to find people, and always it was also a way for us to build our blog because, as you can imagine, like it's very difficult for a blogging service to pretend they're good at blogging if they don't even have a blog, which actually was the case in the very beginning, to be honest. So very quickly we had to have our own blog and our own content, and so it was a way for us to combine both objectives, right? We built our blog with the first few freelancers we hired, right? So it was a way for us to try to vet them, to make sure they were good. And we used, the deliverables they gave us on our own blog. And as soon as we were confident enough that they were okay to add to our team, then of course we would work with them on client projects. So I think that's important to try, to be ready to try on your own. It's less risky. I mean, if something goes wrong, it's less risky if it's for you, right, than for clients directly, I suppose.
That's fantastic. Instead of offering a service, doing all the work yourself, you found a need for yourself, brought people in, and then used those people to help build a different business that worked around what you already had. Just this full circle thing. That's beautiful.
It's important. I mean, it's scratch your own itch. Since I work with so many startups, also with my other business, since we are helping in product development, it's always a question of helping them reach product market fit. So I've always been very familiar with this problem, like trying to build something that's useful for your market, basically, right? And that's the concept. And so I think it makes it easier if you are your own market, or if you are part of your own market, right? So I think it's important. Otherwise, you're always going to compete with people who are more knowledgeable about your market than yourself. And so it's very difficult to start a startup when you don't know much about your market. So
leads me to my next question is, how did you make SaaSprint stand out from other agencies?
Yeah, it's a good question because I knew back then already that, choosing blogging and SEO, I mean, I know it's a very crowded space, but we were also competing with people on Fiverr, like charging $20 for a blog post and so on. So it was kind of difficult we try different strategies, by the way, when it comes to pricing. But I guess where we stand out, I suppose, I mean, in all humility, I suppose it's my background, because I think when I like to work with entrepreneurs themselves directly, right? So I've always preferred working with small. This is why I love working with startups, because you talk directly with the entrepreneurs, with the startup founders and so on. And I guess I could connect with them in an easier way, or in a more believable way. I mean, because I have a background, like I could discuss tech as well, right? Because that's the thing, right? When you work with SaaS, there's different industries, but you get very quickly into technical aspects as well, because they're proud of their product and so on. And I could actually, sometimes in discussion, like prove that I knew also about product development. I could even discuss coding if I was discussing with the technical minded founder. I wouldn't say it's always been the main differentiator, but I know with a lot of them, it's the fact that I'm believable, because I've launched SaaS myself as well, compared to typical marketing agencies, which are like obviously experts in marketing, but not necessarily in the other aspects of SaaS, I guess.
So you got your first clients, you use your network. At what point did you start scaling, and what strategies did you use to scale?
Honestly, I don't think I did anything very surprising or very out of the box or whatever. I mean, it's the usual channels. Of course, we're using a lot of content marketing ourselves. Being an introvert, I love inbound leads, because, I don't have to try to convince people who are kind of reluctant. So, of course, we put a lot of efforts into our own inbound machine, I would say. But to be honest, we also, I mean, I'm still using a lot of referrals. I think it's still the best way it's even easier than inbound, because you're just relying on recommendations. So it's more trustworthy as well. But we've also done a lot of outbound too. It's a numbers game, I guess. It took me a while to accept that, because to me, it's always been more like spamming, basically, right? But I believe when it comes to B2B, sometimes people are looking for you for what you're selling, and it's just like they just have to see it in their face. I'm sure there's a lot of people that you won't connect with if it's the wrong moment. So sometimes it's worth trying multiple times, at least if you haven't received any negative answers, I guess.
Do you mind talking revenue numbers?
The height of the business, we reached about between $25 and $30K dollars per month. Keeping in mind that I didn't mention that, but it's essentially a lifestyle business for me, or I mean, that was my goal. And I think we're going to discuss that later on if we talk about my inspiration. But, it's my second business. So I kind of got financially independent with the first business. So here I decided to do that on my terms, and I wanted to, learn more. That's why I moved to Dubai. I gave myself some constraints, like I want to work just a few hours per day and so on. We reached about like between 25 and 30K. That's what I remember. We're a bit below that right now. When I started SAAS, I basically hired a CEO for my first agency that would take care of everything. And it went really well in the beginning, then not so well in the end. So last year, long story short, last year I had to get back there and replace the CEO, unfortunately. So since last year, it was a lot of work, very stressful because I had a team there. So I had to put SAAS a bit on the back burner.
So you touched on a lot of the marketing things that you do. I want to touch on referrals and how they are massive for so many companies, especially ones like yours. What approaches do you take to encourage this kind of marketing?
It's something I think, as I said, like super important. So much that we've recently launched that package that you might have seen on the website, which is about case studies. I think that's everyone knows they should be doing, but it's so much hassle. Like you don't want to bother your client, you don't want to, and there's a lot of different skills that you need and so on. And so this is why we launched this recently, because we do this now on behalf of our clients. We interview the clients and we produce all these the video and so on. I guess it's more of a buyer's market. I think we could say that than a seller's market, right? So people are just like looking on Trustpilot or whatever, like a G2 for SaaS and all these kind of platforms. People really take their time before they feel confident about engaging in business with a firm. Because it's not just a matter of money, but also like wasted time and, like cost of opportunity. If you start working with someone and you waste like a few months before you realize that they're not the right partner. So we've always tried to focus on that to answer your question, like since the beginning. It's just that we were very basic in the beginning. So we would just start publishing a few blog posts and then just try to get very quickly, like at least a testimonial. So like, because it's low effort, are you okay with this? And of course, we won't publish it if they're not okay. But, we try to make it as easy as a yes, right? And usually another recommendation I would make is to try to pitch it not as a sale, but just as a feedback, trying to get feedback, basically. Like if you know someone else, that could be interested, like, would you mind just putting us in touch? And I just want to discuss to see what they find interesting or not interesting with our offer, for example. I think it's again, this comes from my background in product development and, customer actually development that I got from my other business, where we try to validate the problem before the solution. So people don't like to be sold, but they like to give their advice and to feel like they're knowledgeable about something, right? And so we just ask them we value your opinion so much. You seem to be so knowledgeable about this and that we would just love if you could give us like 15 minutes of your opinion and present it as a feedback collection, basically. And then it's much easier to say, oh, well, you've told us so much, so many positive things about what we do. Like, would you want to give it a try? So, and then you discuss potentially if they are interested. So yeah, this two-step approach. So first trying to get your client to confirm that to give basically a positive review, and then piggyback on that and ask them to recommend you to people they know, basically. And they're kind of psychology forced to do that because I just said they liked what you did. So I mean, we're not trying to trick them, but it's a natural like follow-up, I guess, to what you just did. So that's the idea.
You've talked about a lot of different marketing channels. What has been your most effective channel that you found?
Well, it's difficult to say. Again, it will depend on the stage that you're in. I'm doing, again, the what I said, like the non-really scalable process where I'm every day on LinkedIn and email and just reaching out to previous clients, current clients for both my businesses or even like previous leads and so on. So it's kind of it works wonders because again, I'm asking for feedback and so on. So it's always going to work, but you can only go so far, I suppose, because it's still, you are the bottleneck, right? And it's kind of since it's not scalable, it's kind of kind of exhausting, to be honest. But when you start scaling, I content because it's kind of a slow channel. So again, it's something you shouldn't start too late. So typically, it's as soon as you're kind of comfortable with your offer, you should start it as soon as possible because it will pay off not very quickly. So you have to be patient. But what I always like to say is that it compounds, right? It's like the difference between renting and owning a flat or whatever, like a real estate. Like it's, when you stop paying your rent and you're out of, you have to leave. It's the same with ads or stuff that you essentially rent. You're renting traffic, right? With, content, you essentially like it compounds. At least with SEO based content, people will keep going. Even I still have people coming to look at blog posts we've written like 3 years ago. So you have to maintain those, of course, but it's still super relevant. So it's kind of investment that might not have made so much sense back then, but now it still pays off. So if you are patient and you're willing to do that, I think it has a lot of value. And just on top of the traffic, it gives like credibility, I suppose, like authority, right? It's like if you write a book or if you have a podcast, for example, right? Or even if people don't read the book or watch the podcast, just seeing on your website that you are the host of that podcast or that you've written that book, it gives you credibility immediately, right? And it's all content, right? It's a bit, it's just like you're like the expert on the topic, right? So I think it's very powerful. So it's not just for SEO. It's also just about like credibility. So that the later stages, I guess, of the consumer journey, or like the funnel, basically.
So getting to the end of the interview on mindset and personal growth, SaaSburn has grown significantly over years. What do you believe are some of the key factors that have allowed you to scale and grow effectively?
Well, it's going to be probably a bit cliche, but it's something I've realized so much. It's about resilience and, keep trusting the process, I guess, keeping doing it. I say that, but honestly, I know I'm not the best at that. So to be honest, I keep telling that myself, because I have a bit of a problem of focus, right? Still today, like I'm running different multiple businesses, and it's honestly, I know I'm probably multitasking too much, but I've come to realize, like, you have to. It takes time, right? So stuff takes time, and so it takes time. So you have to, of course, not do things like without any kind of feedback. So you should, of course, like not just be follow blindly stuff that doesn't deliver any result, but still you have to be patient and accept setbacks and accept like negative feedback if it allows you to keep learning and maybe pivot a little bit, or at least learn from your negative experiences and keep pushing. So yeah, a bit cliche, but I think it's definitely the most important. I sincerely believe that you can do any kind of business if you really want it. I mean, of course, there needs to be a business, but since we're talking about small businesses like agencies and B2B and so on, there's as long as you have competition, you can do it, right? I've talked to so many startups. They are like the Android CRM. Like, there's so many people that succeed with something that seems like it's been solved hundreds of times, and they still succeed because they put their own touch, and they're passionate about that, basically, right? So that's, yeah, it's about like, just keeping doing it and being resilient even in the face of adversity.
As a business owner, is there any education, like books, courses, anything like that have made a significant impact on how you run your business?
I love reading books. I read so many books, both in business and probably in self-help. I have the usual like inspirations. Like probably one of the first books that got me into this was the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, of course. But I read like the first edition back in 2006 or something, I don't remember. Definitely got me into entrepreneurship and this lifestyle thing. Stuff like Atomic Habits, of course, like stuff like that, of course, are very. But I would say more specifically, what got me into trying to build this kind of business that kind of tries to scale without you, and productize, like I mentioned before. There's The E-Myth. That's a very famous book as well. About trying to fight against this urge of entrepreneurs to, try to do everything by themselves and try, and put processes, understand that, they're probably not always the best, and, basically how to set that up and build processes. There's Build to Sell, which I love as well, that I keep promoting, by John Warrillow, I think. He's written a few books about that, but it was definitely my main inspiration for productizing, because it's told as a story, right? I think about an agency that decides to focus on specific type of business, and they just double down on that and try to become the best. I think it was a logo. It's a design company that becomes a logo making service, basically, and they try to become the best at that. So they build the best processes, and they produce so many logos that they become the best. And so it's about the importance of processes and all that. And there's a few similar books like Work the System and stuff like that. I could share the links. So that's more specific to the kind of business I'm into, like productized services. Being in SaaS, I like the books by Dan Martell as well. There's I Back Your Time, which he released like last year. It's more about like larger businesses, but it's about like not being afraid of delegating and the importance of, your time is basically the most important asset that you have, and everyone has 24 hours per day. So how to save that and how to better invest the little time that you have into what you really enjoy doing and what you do the best, basically. So that was a good inspiration, a more recent inspiration for me.
I think you've touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to ask this question anyway. And it's a question I like to ask people to kind of give the audience and everybody that's watching a context about how you got to where you are. And that question is, what was your childhood like? Did you always want to build your own business?
Well, it's a good question. As I think I mentioned, I was kind of a nerd. I mean, I was like very intellectual. I was into, I mentioned, like programming and gaming and all these things. So I lived with my computer a lot. Not to say that I was totally asocial. That's not true. But I was definitely passionate about that and trying to solve problems with. And my parents like really let me do basically what I wanted. I had computers and I loved. I think I've always been passionate about entrepreneurship as well. I think I was probably in 6th grade or something. I read a book that was for children about like basically about business, or like how to build your own first business or something. And I remember like I basically hired in a way like some of my fellow like student. I mean, my friends there, and we started doing some selling stuff. I think it was like plaster decorations that we painted or stuff like that. We just like little stuff that we sold during the yearly school party or something. And it was just a first experiment for me, because the point obviously wasn't to make money. We were not really. It was more about like organizing stuff, and you're trying to build something as a team, right? And so I remember like leading that basically. So that's my first experience, if I remember. Very small scale product, but it was my first interest in that.
What advice would you give to someone looking to start their own business?
We're going to be cliche, but like, all the teachings from the lean startup, they're probably like 15 years old now, or even older if you look at it where it comes from. But it's like, trying to build something that the market will want, right? So try. It's very important, especially for tech-oriented people like me. Very tempting to start jumping into something because you like building something. It's the other way around. You have to start looking at what the market needs, right? And what problem you're trying to solve. So always start with the problem, and then see, of course, how you can build a solution that will solve that problem, of course. But yeah, as soon as focus on the problem and don't be afraid to experiment and try to get feedback as soon as possible. So that's very cliche, but that's something I still see today. So that's what I find very interesting. People keep not doing that. And the good thing, as I said before, is that you don't have to be super original, at least for our size. And you can definitely build something that already exists, right? Because you're going to put your own touch. So don't be afraid of that. It's obviously going to be different. I've seen so many successes of people, as I said, doing stuff that's been built hundreds of times before. And I still work for somehow. So don't give up because you find a competitor that does exactly the same or something.
Where can people find more about you and your business? And I believe you have a community too that you're launching. Or launched?
Yeah, so I have this website, which is just like nicolas.io, which wise you can obviously find me on the usual LinkedIn, Instagram, and so on. I have those two businesses, so belighted.com. I think I have a t-shirt, so that's the software development company. Then there's saasprin.co for the marketing service we chatted about. And as you said, I recently launched a free community called microsaas.org, which is, as the name implies, more focused towards like really small, like getting started SaaS businesses. So typically solopreneurs or small teams who want to, launch their own software products. So we try to help those people getting from $0 to $10,000 monthly recurring revenue. And in the community, you're going to find like people like that. And there's a course that I recently launched, a video course that's going to get you from all those steps from mindset, ideation, building, marketing, all the way through exiting actually as well. So that's
awesome. Nicolas, thank you so much for taking time to do an interview. It was so awesome to learn how you built your business, and you shared so many pieces of advice, actionable advice. So I'm stoked to share this.
A pleasure. It was a pleasure for me to do that. Thank you, Corey.